everyone, welcome to my channel Real Time Economics. As always, we are going to break down our analysis into two parts. The first part is the knowledge section, wherein we look at how the Karnataka government is reversing its zero taxation policy to a 5 to 10% lifetime tax. On the other hand, we have Telangana government, which is adopting a 0% tax policy and doubling down on EV adoption. Let's get started. Karnataka state government is preparing to end the 100% road tax exemption previously enjoyed by battery operated cars. Since 2024, Karnataka had been collecting lifetime tax on EVs which were priced above 25 lakhs. Now this is a significant shift from March 2016 when all battery operated vehicles were given total exemption to boost the green adoption. According to the new Karnataka Motor Vehicle Taxation Bill of 2026, a lifetime tax will now be levied based on the vehicle's cost at the time of registration. So the EVs which are priced up to 10 lakhs will see a 5% tax. Those between 10 lakh and 25 lakhs will be taxed at 8%, and any EV costing more than 25 lakhs will carry a 10% tax. However, this new rule won't apply to the electric two-wheelers, which is a relief for the average commuter. Look at the comparison between the EV and the internal combustion engine cars. For the cars which are priced up to 5 lakh, for EVs it is 5%, however for ICE cars it is 13%. From 5 lakh to 10 lakh it is 5% again for EV cars, but 14% for ICE cars. 10 to 20 lakhs it's 8% for EVs compared to 17% for ICE. 20 to 25 lakhs is 8% for EVs and 18% for the ICE, and above 25 lakhs also 10% for EVs compared to 18% for ICE cars. The goods and service tax on ICE cars has been reduced from 28% to 18% based on the engine size. Because of this move, there has been a reduction in the cost advantage between the EV and the ICE. So earlier, the difference between the ICE and EV cars was 23%. This has narrowed down to 13% after the GST cut from 28 to 18%. Also, you can see that earlier there was no road tax, and hence there was a strong reason for adopting EVs. However, after this road tax, the differential we have seen has reduced to 13%, plus there is an additional road tax of 5 to 10%. So this would definitely lead to a reduced EV adoption rate. Electric car makers like Hyundai, Mahindra and Mahindra, Kia India, they have sought a meeting with the Karnataka Chief Minister, warning that the move could affect the air pollution goals of the state, their oil imports, energy security, and also the investment outlook for India's EV industry. They have raised concerns that the higher upfront costs could slow EV adoption and affect the state's EV growth. As you can see that the state plans to rake in revenue of 259 crores by imposing this up to 10% lifetime tax. The EV companies definitely fear slowdown in the EV adoption. The consumers are going to face a higher upfront cost. The experts say that there should be a gradual transition rather than an immediate measure to increase the government revenue. Telangana is offering a 10 to 20% discount on EVs for the government staff. The aim is to make government employees early adopters and the brand ambassadors. As per the new vehicle scrappage policy, 6,278 old vehicles have been scrapped since September 2024. The focus is to remove pollution and end-of-life vehicles. On the infrastructure front, the government is expanding the EV charging infrastructure and also planning to retrofit diesel buses into electric buses. The incentives and financial support includes the scrappage incentives, which is 5,000 for motorcycles and 50,000 for the cars. There are also tax reductions for the commercial vehicles. The government has waived 100% road tax and registration fees for EVs. Approximately 925 crore revenue is foregone to support this EV adoption. In this part of the video, we are going to do a real-time economic analysis. So let us do a real analysis of the article. The real world event being that the Karnataka government is considering a 5 to 10% lifetime tax on the EVs. Firms like Tata Motors and Hyundai argue that this could reduce EV adoption, hurt the investment in the sector, and also slow clean mobility transition. The first economic concept involved here is the indirect tax. The EV tax is a kind of an ad valorem indirect tax, a tax which increases with the increase in the price of cars. This tax is going to increase the cost of production for the EV firms. The next economic concept is positive externalities of consumption. So as we know, positive externalities create benefits for the third parties. In this case, the EVs will reduce the pollution level, lower carbon emissions, and lead to better public health. So EV goods are a merit good which lead to positive externalities of consumption. The third economic concept involved here is government failure. Taxing the EVs may cause government failure. This is because government intervention would further reduce the socially optimum level of consumption and hence lead to increased welfare loss to the society. The next concept is price elasticity of demand. We know that there are substitutes available for electric vehicles, which are the internal combustion engine vehicles. The EVs are therefore price elastic, which means that if the price of EVs increase, then the people are going to switch to ICE. And there could be many factors for the same. It could be because the infrastructure development is still not up to the mark to adopt EVs at a faster rate than the internal combustion engines. So the tax would largely lead to a fall in demand for the EVs. In the next part of the video, we are going to analyze the economic concept using the diagrams. So the first diagram relates to the indirect taxes on EVs. Given that price is on y-axis and the quantity demanded is on x-axis. So this is nothing but a market for EVs. So what do we see here? To start with, this is our supply curve and this is our demand curve. Where the two intersect determines the equilibrium. So this is in a free market, this is the equilibrium quantity being consumed and this is the equilibrium price being charged. After the indirect tax, a lifetime tax of 5 to 10% is imposed on EVs, the supply curve is going to shift outwards. Since this is an ad valorem tax which increases with the increase in the price of the goods, so it will not be a parallel shift, but as the price increases, the amount of tax also increases. So the vertical distance between these two lines is your tax, which you can see is increasing with the increase in prices. So this is the impact of indirect tax. It will lead to higher market price. Now the two curves are intersecting at a new point and you can see that at this higher price, which is P1, the quantity demanded falls to Q1. So it leads to a fall in the quantity demanded. The next concept that we can explain using the diagram is the positive externalities. Again, on the y-axis we have price, and on the x-axis we have the quantity. This is again our market for EVs. This is our supply curve, or we can also call it as marginal private cost, and we know that marginal private cost, there is no negative externality of production or consumption or any other externality, so the marginal private cost is equal to the marginal social cost, assuming no externalities. This is our demand curve, which is nothing but the marginal private benefit, and this is equal to the marginal social benefit. But here in this case, since there is a positive externality involved, which means that marginal social benefit will be greater than the marginal private benefit, because if we consume EVs, it will have external benefits, that is benefits to the third parties. So this is the point where the market is actually producing and consuming to start with. So this is PE and this is QE. However, as we know, marginal social benefit is more than the marginal private benefit. The socially optimum level of output where the resources are efficiently allocated is this point, which is E1. Assuming this is E, now this is the new point E1, which is the socially optimum level of output. So this is where we would like to consume. This is the optimum level of output, the best combination of goods from the viewpoint of the society, and this is the optimum price. So you can see that if we are consuming at QE, which is less than the optimum point, there are some positive externalities which can be represented by, so here at this point marginal social benefit is more than the marginal private benefit, so this entire triangle area is nothing but the externalities, or we can say the deadweight loss to the society because of under consumption. So this is the welfare loss due to under consumption. Now let us see what will happen if there is tax which is imposed. What will happen to the externalities and the welfare loss or the deadweight welfare loss? This is our price and this is our quantity. I am going to redraw the previous graph once again. So this is our MPC is equal to MSC at the moment is equal to supply curve. This is our demand curve, which is equal to marginal private benefit, but we know there are positive externalities, so our marginal social benefit will be more than marginal private benefit, and this is where the optimum level of output lies. This is the optimum price, but we are consuming at this point because we are not aware of the social benefits. We have not taken into account the social benefits, so this is where we are consuming, that is at point E. However, the socially optimum level is point E1. Now what will happen if there is an indirect tax? Because of indirect tax, the cost of production will increase. Because of this, the MPC curve will shift to the left. So this is our new marginal private cost. So you can see that at this private cost, we are now consuming at this point here, which is E2, which is further less than the previous point where we were consuming. So we have drifted even further away from the socially optimum level of output. So this tax will move output further away from the social optimum level, increasing the deadweight welfare loss. Now looking at the long-term evaluation, why government might tax EVs? First of all, the government wants to generate revenue. Secondly, as we know that in 2016 the government had announced zero tax policy for EVs. However, since GST was reduced from 28% to 18% on the ICE vehicles, this had put a strain on the fiscal revenue of the government. As a result, to shore up its revenue, the government wants to impose this lifetime tax and increase their revenues. EV adoption is already rising, hence there is no need to further support it with more subsidies. If the government keeps providing subsidies, then it might just lead to over subsidization and an overburden on the government finances. Why this may be problematic is because EV ecosystem we know is still developing, and in the beginning it might need some support to develop to its fullest. The higher prices will definitely reduce the demand for EVs. The environmental progress will also slow down. It is going to throw a wrench in achieving the goal of net zero emissions as stated by the government, and also it will discourage investments. To conclude, we can say that the effectiveness of this policy depends on the stage of market development. In the early stages, the tax could prove to be harmful, whereas if the stage is matured, there is a greater adoption of EV vehicles, then the tax may be acceptable. Countries like Norway, they have used subsidies and tax exemptions to promote EVs. They have achieved very high EV adoption, approximately around 80%, before they introduced the taxes on EVs. Hope you found the content to be useful. Thank you for watching.